friends, trolling for walleye doesn't have to cost a fortune. I'm not saying it's cheap, but you don't have to spend a fortune to do it. For probably 15 or 20 years, I've been using the Okuma Magda reels. This is the size 20. The size 20 is what I've always used for walleye. This is the size 30, and the size 30 is what I typically use for muskie. Okay, but this year I've decided to make a bit of a switch. This year I've tried out the size 15. Size 15 is a little bit smaller, it's a little bit more comfortable in your hand. It has a capacity of 10-pound test at about 300 yards. So it's a little bit cheaper to spool it up. So I tried one of them. I absolutely loved it. I decided it was time to switch all my walleye trolling rods to the size 15. So I just received today from my friends over at Tackle Harbor in St. Joe, Michigan, another Magda Pro MA15DX. I had them spool it with 10-pound Berkeley Trilene XT. They actually offer a great deal on spooling. They spooled me up 300 yards for 10 bucks. You cannot beat that. But you'll notice that the 10 is slightly, the 15 model is slightly smaller than the size 20. And again, it just fits in your hand really nice. It comes with both handles. It comes with a standard handle, and it comes with the power handle. I've been running it with the standard handle, and I kind of like it. But the Magda Pro 15 DX, excellent reel for trolling walleye. You can get into this reel very inexpensively. I think they sell these on their eBay store for around 45 bucks. Like I said, they'll spool it up for another 10 bucks. Man, that's just about as cheap as you can get into a good reel. In my opinion, that choosing your walleye trolling reel is a pretty simple choice. The Okuma Magda Pro, regardless of which size you choose, in my opinion, is just a great value for the money. Don't forget to check out my friends over at Tackle Haven in St. Joe, Michigan. I'll leave a link in the description below to their eBay store, and I'll leave a link to their store website. But again, they're the best deal I could find on a Magda Pro. Okay, but the more difficult part of the conversation is your rod choice for trolling. The options get a lot more difficult when we start talking about trolling rods. The first part of the conversation that's pretty difficult is rod length. It's hard to get any two anglers to agree on what's the perfect rod length when it comes to a trolling rod. In fact, maybe there is no such thing as the perfect length, because I think the right rod length depends on the angler and the boat that he's fishing out of. A lot of guys now are choosing rods in the 9 to 10 foot range. There probably are a few advantages of a rod that long, but I think the disadvantages far outweigh them. To me personally, I prefer a rod that's in the 7 to 8 foot range, maybe 8'6". when you're talking about bottom bouncers or you're talking about planer boards, I think you want a rod in a medium action. You definitely want a rod with a fairly sensitive tip, but you also want a rod with enough backbone to be able to handle your planer boards or your heavier bottom bouncers like 2 and 3 ounce bottom bouncers. Now I'm running an old Gander Mountain Advantage Series planer board rod. I still have 2 of these rods. These got to be about 20 years old. Unfortunately, these rods are no longer in production, and I'm going to assume that they'd be pretty tough to find. But I'll tell you, one of the rod bargains on the market today is the Shakespeare Ugly Stick GX2, or even the older Shakespeare Ugly Sticks. This rod in a 7-foot medium action makes an excellent rod for bottom bouncing. In fact, that's what I use this. That's why I have a bass reel on this rod, is I just use this for bottom bouncing. I don't necessarily need a trolling reel on it. But the 7-foot medium action Ugly Stick also makes a great planer board rod, particularly for the guys fishing out of smaller boats. When you're running planer boards on a small boat, a long rod presents a few challenges. So first of all, you've got to have enough room to back up so that your buddy can take the planer board off of your line. A 7-foot rod is great for that because it's easy for your partner to reach the rod tip. You can back up far enough to keep the rod tip inside the boat. The shorter rod makes netting a whole lot easier. You can get by with a standard long handle net. You don't have to have a giant extended handle net. And maybe more importantly is storage, rod storage. Guys that are running 16 and 17 foot boats just typically don't have storage for 8 and 9 foot rods. Just about everybody has storage for a 7-foot rod. One other bargain rod that I think is worth a mention is the Depth Master series by Cabela's. You can pick those rods up under 50 bucks. They come in multiple lengths, multiple actions. You can definitely get the length and the action that suits your needs or your preference. And the price is right on that. The price is definitely right on those rods. But hey, the conversation doesn't end there. When you're talking about trolling with planer boards, another big expense is your planer board itself. Now, a lot of walleye guys consider the offshore OR12 to be the gold standard of boards. However, they also happen to be the most expensive planer board, the most expensive inline boards on the market. A pro pack of OR12s with the tattle flag kit, which is a pack of 2 boards and 2 tattle flag kits, is about 125 bucks. That's pretty pricey for a guy that's just trying to break into trolling. Most guys are going to want to have, even with a small boat, most guys are going to want to have 2 sets of boards to run 2 rods on either side of the boat. So you're talking about 250 bucks just in trolling boards. Kind of the middle of the road board, and a board that I've been running for years. I still run these boards a lot for muskie fishing. Once in a while in the spring I have an opportunity to get down south and do a little bit of trolling for stripers, and this board comes in super handy for stripers. But this is the Church's Tackle Mr. Walleye board. Now these are so old that they're the Gary Roach model. The newer ones are Mark Martin boards. But these boards, and you can outfit these with tattle flags too. When I'm running these for muskie and when I'm running them for striped bass, you don't need the tattle flag. Either fish takes these boards down like a bobber. But the Church's Tackle board A pair of these with the tattle flag kits is going to set you back about 80 bucks. So with these, to have 4 of them, you're at 160 bucks. So I think for the guy looking to break into this at the economy level, you can't go wrong with the yellow board planers. Yellow board's been around for decades. They're time-tested boards. These come standard with the tattle flag kit. They come with pretty good hardware, right out of the box with pretty good hardware. And these boards are about 25 to 30 bucks each. So even on the high side, you're into 4 of these for about 100, 100 and a quarter. So I think for the most part, when it comes to boards, whatever you can get a deal on, when you're talking walleye fishing, I think it's definitely worth running whatever you can run that actually has a tattle flag, a functional tattle flag. It definitely helps detect the lighter bites. But hey, whatever you can get a deal on, you can get the job done with any of these boards. But hey, that's not the end of the conversation. You've still got one last component to invest in if you're just getting into trolling, and that is your rod holders. I bring up rod holders because I believe that there's a lot of junk out there on the market. For years I've been using the Scotty rod holders. These Scotties have treated me well for a lot of years. I've never had a rod come out of a Scotty rod holder. Never had a rod holder break on me. These are not at the cheap end of the scale, but they're not super expensive either. Cabela's has a brand that I think are essentially the same thing as Scotty's. I know their parts are interchangeable with Scotty's, so they may actually be made by Scotty. I don't know. That might be worth investigating. But I know at one time I tried some Berkeley rod holders and they were garbage. Honestly, anything at the lower end of rod holders I'd be pretty nervous about, just because I've had some bad luck with the lower end rod holders years ago. I would stick to, in plastic rod holders or composite rod holders, personally my money says stick with Scotty, or like I said, maybe that Cabela's line's worth investigating. If they're made by Scotty and they're a little bit cheaper, you probably can't go wrong doing that. And then at the high end, of course, you've got some of your aluminum rod holders like Bert's Custom Tackle. You can get into some pretty pricey stuff there. The one thing worth considering is that when you get into the rod holder tubes, the handle of the rod is in the tube, so the entire rod is outside of the boat. When you're running cradle style rod holders, you've got the handle of the rod in the boat. The rod tubes do kind of maximize space, I suppose, but I've never found it to be an issue having the rod handles in the boat. Hey, but that's pretty much it, guys. If you're just outfitting a boat from scratch and you don't have anything, to run a 4-rod system, you're looking at somewhere around $600 to $800, I suppose. To maximize the efficiency of using line counter reels, you need to know the dive curve chart for each bait that you are going to run. The Precision Trolling app by Mark Romanek does exactly that. If you're a walleye fisherman and you're already doing some planer board trolling, leave a comment in the comment box below. Leave some helpful tips to the guys that are just breaking into this tactic. Thanks again for watching Team Jesus Outdoors. We'll catch you on the water. Guys, if you have questions about anything we've talked about today, any of the equipment we've talked about, any of the tactics we've talked about, anything that you think I've missed, please leave a comment in the comment box below. If you're a walleye fisherman and you're already doing some planer board trolling, leave a comment in the comment box below. Leave some helpful tips to the guys that are just breaking into this tactic. Thanks again for watching Team Jesus Outdoors. We'll catch you on the water.